Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruel thing my wife did was invite me to dinner with her parents like it was a peace offering, then try to trap me into signing paperwork that would ruin me financially and let her family paint me as unstable, while she watched me drown and never once showed remorse. Here's how it happened. My name is Khalil Varnado. I'm a black man who used to believe that if you stayed consistent, people eventually met you in the middle. I believed in showing up, paying what I owed, keeping my word, and speaking carefully when emotions got loud. I learned too late that consistency makes you easy to predict. It gives the wrong people a schedule to exploit. Serena Motley, my wife, used to call me steady like it was a compliment. Toward the end, she said it like an insult. We lived in a quiet pocket of Indianapolis where the streets looked harmless and the neighbors nodded without ever asking real questions. I worked in operations for a regional supply company, a job built on inventory counts, vendor timelines, and fixing problems before they turned into disasters. It made me good at staying calm in chaos. It also made me slow to accept that chaos could be personal. I thought marriage had rules like my job did. Respect the contract, do the work, tell the truth. Serena didn't see it that way anymore. Serena and I met at a charity mixer in downtown Indianapolis years ago, the kind of event with polite laughter and glasses that never went empty. She wore a cream blazer and a smile that seemed practiced but warm enough to feel real. She asked questions like she actually cared about the answers. She told me she admired men who were reliable. When you grow up watching people disappear, reliability feels like love. I married her because I believed her admiration was sincere, not strategic. Her parents, Meridell and Hollis Motley, never liked me. They didn't say it directly at first. They did it through small cuts. Hollis forgetting my name, calling me Kendall or Khaled, then acting like I was too sensitive for noticing. Meridell complimenting Serena for leveling up, and then looking at me like I was temporary furniture. I told myself they would soften once they saw I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't realize that was the part they hated most. Their dislike became sharper after Serena and I bought our house. It was nothing grand, just a clean place with a small backyard and a porch that caught late afternoon sun. I was proud of it. Serena posted pictures like she was proud too, but her parents started talking about property like it was a weapon. Hollis would say things like, "These days, you have to protect assets," while staring straight at me. Meridell would add, "Especially when people marry for comfort." Serena would laugh lightly, like it was all harmless. The first time Serena humiliated me in public, it happened at a friend's birthday dinner in Fishers. Someone asked how we divided bills. Serena leaned back and said, "Khalil likes to feel needed. He gets weird if I take too much control." People laughed because it sounded like a playful jab. I laughed too, because I didn't want to be the man who ruined the mood. But on the drive home, I asked her why she said it like that. She shrugged and told me I needed thicker skin. After that, she started rewriting our story while I was still living in it. If I asked for clarity, she called it insecurity. If I want to talk about feelings, she called it drama. If I pointed out something that didn't add up, she told me I was imagining things. It wasn't screaming or obvious cruelty. It was a slow grind of being treated like my reality was optional. And because I loved her, I kept trying to earn basic respect like a man paying interest on a debt he never took out. Serena also started spending differently. Not wildly at first, just more business expenses, more subscriptions, more sudden charges I didn't recognize. When I asked, she'd say she was building something for us that I should be proud. She talked about a side business with an excited brightness that made me want to support her. She asked me to help with setup, payment links, email accounts, simple bookkeeping. It sounded harmless. I did what husbands do when they still believe partnership is real. I helped. I didn't know her brother Tavian was involved. Tavian was the kind of man who always had a new plan, always spoke in half-finished sentences like the details were too advanced for anyone else. He drifted between jobs and blamed every employer for not appreciating his value. When Serena talked about her business, Tavian started showing up more. He'd sit at our kitchen counter and grin at Serena like they shared a private joke. Sometimes I walked into the room and their conversation would pause, then restart in a different direction. The tension hit a new level the month Serena suggested we attend family dinner at her parents' house in Carmel. She framed it like a reset. She said Meridell had been asking about me, that Hollis wanted to clear the air. Serena spoke softly, touching my arm like she remembered tenderness. I wanted to believe it. I wanted that relief so badly that I ignored the way her eyes stayed detached, like she was acting from a script she didn't write but still intended to follow. On the day of the dinner, Serena got unusually dressed up. Not just nice, careful. A structured dress, earrings that caught light, hair done with the kind of precision she used for job interviews. She looked like she was going somewhere important. When I told her she looked beautiful, she said thanks without looking up from her phone. Her nails clicked against the screen. She smiled at something. It wasn't for me. We drove north to Carmel under a sky that looked bruised with winter. Serena played music low, but the car felt silent anyway. At a stoplight, she checked her phone again and again. I asked if everything was okay. She said she was just coordinating something with her mother. Then she added, "Please don't make tonight harder than it has to be." The way she said it made me feel like I was already guilty of something. I swallowed my response and focused on the road. Meridell opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Their house was immaculate in the way some homes are when they're designed to impress strangers, not comfort family. Everything smelled like lemon cleaner and expensive candles. Hollis shook my hand with a grip that tried to prove something. Tavian was already there, leaning against the kitchen island, wearing a watch that looked too new for a man who was always between opportunities. He nodded at me like we were co-workers, not relatives. Dinner started politely. Meridell asked about my job, then redirected every answer into a critique. Operations is stressful. Men get burned out. Hollis asked about the mortgage and spoke about interest rates like he was testing me. Serena sat beside me, but angled her body slightly away, like we weren't a unit. Tavian smirked when Hollis made jokes about protecting the family name. I tried to keep my tone even. I tried to be respectful. I didn't realize respect was exactly what they were counting on. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed once in my pocket. I ignored it out of courtesy. Then it buzzed again. Serena's eyes flicked toward me, quick and sharp. Tavian's foot tapped under the table like he was impatient. Meridell stood and began clearing plates even though I was still eating. Hollis poured himself more water and asked, casually, "So, Khalil, have you ever considered what would happen if you and Serena didn't work out?" The question landed like a weight. My phone buzzed a third time. I excused myself and checked it under the table. The message came from an unknown number. "Leave now." 2 words in all caps. No greeting, no explanation. My chest tightened. I read it twice like the letters might rearrange into something harmless. The second I looked up, I noticed details I hadn't wanted to see. A manila folder near Hollis's chair, the way Serena's hand kept hovering toward her purse, the way Meridell kept glancing toward the front hallway like she was waiting for someone. Serena's phone lit up. She glanced at it and stood. "I'll be right back," she said too casually. Tavian stood at the same time. "I need air," he said. They walked toward the back door together. Hollis watched them leave with the calm of a man watching a plan proceed. Meridell smiled at me and said, "You know, marriage is about responsibility." Her voice was sweet, but the words felt like a trap closing. My heart was hammering. I tried to breathe quietly so no one would see panic. Serena and Tavian came back in less than a minute, like they'd rehearsed it. Serena sat and picked up her water glass. Her hands were steady, too steady. Hollis slid the manila folder onto the table like it was dessert. "We just want to make sure you understand the future," he said. Meridell leaned in, eyes bright. "It's standard. It's smart," she said. Serena finally looked at me and said, "Khalil, just read it. It's not a big deal." My throat went dry. I opened the folder and saw pages with headings, signatures, and language that looked like it came from a lawyer. Serena's name was already printed in multiple places. There were places for my signature. Words jumped out: separate property, waiver, spousal support, voluntary. Hollis tapped a pen against the table like he was timing me. Meridell said, "This protects everyone." Serena's face stayed neutral, like she was watching a business transaction. The text on my phone burned in my mind. Leave now. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I felt the old instinct to keep peace rise up, and for the first time I forced it down. I closed the folder gently. I can't sign anything tonight, I said. Hollis's smile tightened. Why not? He asked. Meridell's voice turned sharper. If you're a good husband, you shouldn't have a problem. Serena's eyes narrowed. Khalil, she said quietly, warning in her tone. Tavian leaned back, satisfied, like he'd been waiting for me to react. I stood, keeping my posture calm, even as my knees shook. I'm not feeling well, I said. Thank you for dinner. Meridell's smile returned in a flash, false and fast. Oh, don't be dramatic, she said. Hollis's gaze stayed fixed on me cold. Serena didn't stand with me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't follow me to the door. She just watched, eyes flat, as if I was walking out of a store without buying anything. That lack of concern cut deeper than the folder. Outside, the air hit my face like a slap. I walked to my car as steadily as I could, aware that Tavian might follow, aware that they might laugh once the door closed behind me. My hands trembled so badly I dropped my keys once. When I got into the car, I locked the doors instantly like a reflex. I sat there breathing hard, staring at the warm light in their windows. I pictured them inside, calm, irritated, already deciding what story they would tell about my behavior. I called the number that texted me. It went a voicemail. I texted back. Who is this? My stomach churned. I drove down the street and parked at a gas station with bright lights and security cameras. My head was spinning with questions. Why would a stranger warn me? Who knew what was coming? Why did Serena look so prepared, so detached? I tried to call Serena. It rang and rang. She didn't pick up. Then my call went to voicemail. A few minutes later, I received a text from her. Stop acting like a victim. That message hit me harder than anything her parents said. It wasn't anger. It was contempt. It confirmed what I'd been afraid to admit. Serena was not confused. She was not pressured. She was not trapped by her parents. She was part of the trap. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry in my car like a man begging the world to be kind. I stared at the steering wheel and told myself one thing. I was done being predictable, done being the steady man everyone assumed would cooperate. I checked our shared bank app. The password didn't work. I tried again. Nothing. I clicked forgot password. The recovery email wasn't mine. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I opened my credit monitoring app and noticed a new inquiry I didn't recognize. My body went cold. Serena hadn't just planned a dinner trap. She had been laying groundwork for months. The humiliation I felt turned into something sharper. Focus. I drove to a quiet hotel in downtown Indianapolis and paid for 2 nights with a card in my name only. In the hotel room, under the bright bathroom light, I looked at my own face like I was meeting myself again. I looked tired, older than I should. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed discomfort to keep peace. All the moments I'd trusted Serena, because trusting your wife is what you're supposed to do. Then I remembered how her eyes didn't soften when I stood to leave. That image hardened something inside me. I sat on the bed, opened my laptop, and started documenting everything I could access without her passwords. The next morning, I went to my bank in person as soon as they opened. I brought my ID, my pay stubs, and that quiet determination that comes from being cornered. A banker helped me verify my individual accounts and freeze what I could. They flagged unusual transfers from a joint account, but because Serena was an owner, the bank couldn't simply hand control to me. Still, they could document concerns. They could advise steps. I froze my credit, placed fraud alerts, and requested records. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. Serena finally called around noon. Her voice was smooth, almost bored. Where did you go? She asked. I told her I was safe and that I wasn't signing anything without counsel. She laughed once, short and dry. Counsel, she repeated, like I was pretending to be important. Khalil, you're making this ugly. I told her it was already ugly. I asked her directly what the folder was. She didn't deny it. She said, it's what smart people do when someone can't be trusted. Then she hung up. I didn't call her back. I sat in that hotel room with the ache spreading through my chest and let myself acknowledge the truth. My marriage had become a negotiation where I was the only one still emotionally invested. When someone calls you untrustworthy while draining your resources, they're not afraid of your betrayal. They're afraid you'll notice theirs. That afternoon, I called a lawyer a coworker once mentioned, an older black woman named Tiffany Banks, known for being calm and unmovable. Her assistant gave me a next-day appointment. I met Tiffany in a modest office in Broad Ripple, not flashy, not designed to impress. She listened without interrupting, taking notes with a pen that moved steadily. I explained the dinner, the folder, the text, the locked accounts, Serena's contempt. Tiffany asked careful questions. Then she said, "You did the most important thing already. You didn't sign." She told me to stop communicating with Serena unless necessary and to do it in writing when possible. She also told me something that changed how I saw everything. This wasn't emotional. It was planned. Tiffany explained how families use pressure, social settings, stage concern, sudden paperwork, to make someone comply. She told me to request the full document Serena intended to present, and not through Serena, through attorneys. She also advised me to prepare for smear tactics, claims that I was controlling, unstable, financially reckless. Tiffany looked at me and said, "People like this don't need truth. They need a story. We're going to bring receipts." That word, receipts, felt like the first breath of air after months underwater. When Serena served me divorce papers 2 weeks later, she did it through a process server at my workplace. She didn't call. She didn't warn me. She let a stranger hand me an envelope in front of coworkers, like she wanted humiliation to be part of the experience. The filing claimed I was financially irresponsible and emotionally volatile. It requested control over certain assets and implied I might need to be supervised for decision-making. My stomach twisted as I read it. Serena had tried to turn my steadiness into a weakness and now wanted the court to see me as a threat. Hollis and Meridell submitted statements too, like they had been waiting their whole lives to testify against me. Their language was polished, confident. They described me as unpredictable, resentful, and fixated on control. Tavian's name appeared as a potential witness, which made my skin crawl. Serena still didn't contact me directly except for one text. "I hope you don't embarrass yourself in court." There was no sadness, no reflection, just the cold belief that she had already won because she had support and I had silence. Tiffany didn't flinch. She requested financial discovery immediately. Bank statements, transaction records, business documentation, communications related to any accounts. Serena's attorney responded with delays and partial information, like they assumed we would get tired. Tiffany didn't get tired. She treated their resistance like confirmation. Meanwhile, I searched for my own records. I remembered helping Serena set up her side business, emails, payment links, bookkeeping. I hadn't kept everything, but I had traces, old confirmations, admin access logs, a spreadsheet draft Serena once asked me to review. I forwarded it all to Tiffany. As discovery unfolded, I began to see patterns that made my hands shake with anger. Payments from our joint account labeled as vendor expenses went to accounts with names that didn't match any real company. Charges repeated in oddly similar amounts, as if designed to look routine. A consulting fee appeared monthly, but the destination account changed. Tiffany brought in a forensic accountant, a quiet man named Orson Leaks, who spoke carefully and never guessed. He didn't need a guess. He just followed the numbers like they were footprints in wet cement. Orson found something that made the room go silent. Multiple transfers from Serena's business funneling into an account tied to Tavian's email. Not only that, some of the business income Serena reported didn't match actual deposits. It looked inflated, padded, manufactured through looping transactions that made revenue appear higher than it was. It wasn't just sloppy. It looked intentional. Serena wasn't building a future for us. She was building a paper wall that could be presented in court to justify her demands. And she was draining me while she built it. The hardest part wasn't even the money. It was remembering all the nights I'd encouraged her, told her I believed in her, listened to her describe dreams. It was realizing my love was used as cover. Serena had let me help set up the system that would later be used to harm me. When I read her messages from that period, "Thank you, babe, you're the best," We're a team. I felt sick. Those words weren't affection. They were camouflage. They were the soft blanket she used to hide the knife. Serena, meanwhile, played her role without cracks. In mediation, she sat with perfect posture and a bored expression, like my pain was an inconvenience. When her attorney spoke about fairness, Serena nodded at the right times. When I spoke, she looked away. She never once apologized. She never once acknowledged what she did at that dinner. Her parents came to one meeting and sat behind her like silent judges. Hollis stared at me with satisfaction, and Meridell kept a faint smile, like watching someone lose was a form of entertainment. Tiffany advised me to stay calm, to let the facts do the damage. It was harder than it sounds. Some nights I lay in the hotel room. I'd eventually turn into a month-long rental because I couldn't stand the emptiness of the house. I missed the version of Serena I thought I knew. I missed the idea of my marriage. The grief didn't come in clean waves. It came in sudden jolts, seeing her favorite cereal at the store, hearing a song she used to play, noticing my phone was silent because the person who once texted me constantly now treated me like a target. The unknown number texted me again once, weeks after the dinner. You did the right leaving. Don't let them rush you. I stared at it for a long time. I still didn't know who it was, but the timing felt too precise to ignore. I asked, "Why are you helping me?" The response came an hour later, "Because you were kind once." And she's not kind. That was it. No explanation. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt tears come without permission, not from weakness, but from the strange relief of being seen by someone who expected nothing in return. The legal process dragged, but the financial evidence grew stronger. Orson traced one account to a family-owned LLC tied to Hollis. It wasn't blatant at first, just a signature here, an address there, the kind of small connection people assume will never be examined. But once it was found, it pulled other threads loose. Hollis had co-signed documents related to Serena's business structure. Meridell's email appeared on a few communications, forwarding forms and advising Serena to keep it clean. They weren't innocent bystanders. They were architects who thought paperwork made them untouchable. Then real-world consequences arrived, the kind you can't argue away with attitude. The bank flagged irregular transfers and filed reports, not because they cared about my marriage, but because the numbers triggered their systems. Serena got a call from the fraud department requesting clarification. She responded with irritation, as if the bank had disrespected her. She tried to shift blame to me, claiming I was confused. But confusion doesn't create repeated loops of money. Confusion doesn't explain vendor names that don't exist. The bank didn't care about her confidence. The bank cared about patterns. Tavian's arrogance cracked first. He didn't come to court, but he couldn't hide from his own chaos. His landlord terminated his lease after income verification failed and late payment stacked. He started calling Serena, demanding help. Serena refused, not out of principle, but out of rage that her plan was under pressure. Hollis tried to shield Tavian through the LLC, but that only exposed them further. When investigators requested records related to the LLC, Hollis looked like a man realizing his signature wasn't just ink. It was a liability. Serena didn't show remorse, even as things tightened around her. She didn't reach out to ask how I was holding up. She didn't offer a compromise. Instead, she doubled down. She told mutual acquaintances that I was punishing her by refusing to sign. She implied I was controlling because I wanted transparency. She said I couldn't handle a strong woman. It would have been funny if it hadn't been my life. The more she lied, the more I understood that she needed to believe her own story to justify what she did. In court, Serena presented herself as composed and wronged. Tiffany presented documents. When Tiffany introduced evidence of inflated business revenue and suspicious transfers, Serena's expression barely changed. She didn't look ashamed. She looked annoyed, like someone had interrupted her schedule. Her attorney tried to argue that the finances were complex. Orson testified with calm precision, explaining the loops, the inconsistencies, the destination accounts. The judge didn't react dramatically. He didn't need to. He just listened, took notes, and asked clear questions that made Serena's narrative wobble. The judge also asked about the dinner folder. Tiffany submitted the paperwork they tried to pressure me to sign, which Serena's side had tried to pretend never existed. Hollis stiffened in the courtroom. Meridell kept her chin lifted like she was still at her dining table. Serena stared straight ahead. Tiffany asked Serena if she had attempted to get me to sign the documents without counsel. Serena answered like it was normal. I thought it would simplify things. Tiffany asked if Serena believed simplification required ambushing me. Serena said, he overreacted. No remorse. No softness. Just the belief that my consent was optional. When the court ordered a deeper look into the finances, Serena's world changed quietly but sharply. Accounts were frozen, pending review. Certain transfers were flagged. Serena's attorney's tone shifted from confident to cautious. Hollis's lawyer advised him to stop communicating with Serena in writing. Tavian disappeared from view, like a man who knew his charm couldn't protect him from paperwork. The Motleys still didn't apologize. They didn't suddenly admit wrongdoing. They acted like the world was unfair for noticing. But consequences don't require confession. Consequences arrive because evidence exists. The settlement negotiations came after the pressure became real. Serena requested spousal support initially, claiming my income made her dependent. After the financial findings, that request collapsed. The judge didn't punish her emotionally. He simply denied what didn't align with facts. The property division shifted to protect me from further manipulation. I didn't win everything. Realistic outcomes don't look like movie endings. But I secured what mattered: a fair equity split, protection from false claims, and documented findings that made future attempts at character assassination less effective. Serena's plan to frame me as unstable failed because I stayed steady in the right way, through documentation, not silence. The most satisfying part wasn't seeing Serena lose money. It was watching her lose control. For someone like Serena, control is oxygen. The moment she couldn't dictate the narrative, she looked smaller, not remorseful, not humbled, just furious and trapped. I watched her in the hallway after one hearing, speaking sharply to her attorney, gesturing like blame was a tool. Hollis stood nearby with a clenched jaw. Meridell stared ahead, refusing to look at me. Tavian wasn't there. Serena's family system was collapsing under its own greed, and nobody could fix it with a smile. After everything was signed, Serena sent me one final message. You think you're so smart. That was it. No apology, no goodbye. I didn't respond. I sat in my car outside the courthouse and let the quiet settle over me. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. I felt like a man who had carried a heavy box for too long and finally set it down, only to realize his arms were shaking from strain. Winning doesn't erase what it cost. It just stops the bleeding from continuing. I moved to Pittsburgh a month later. I chose it because it was far enough to feel like a new chapter, but close enough to keep my job transfer manageable. I rented a modest apartment with clean lines and good light. I bought furniture slowly, deliberately, refusing to recreate a life built on someone else's approval. I didn't post anything about it. I didn't announce healing. I just lived quietly, like a man learning how to breathe, without checking if someone else approved of his lungs. I rebuilt my finances the way I rebuild anything: systems, steps, consistency. Automatic savings, separate accounts, alerts for every transaction, a binder of documents that lived in a drawer, not because I wanted to obsess, but because I refused to be blindsided again. I learned to treat my peace like a budget. Protect it, track it, don't overspend it on people who don't return value. I stopped answering calls that drained me. I stopped explaining myself to anyone committed to misunderstanding. That change was private. No one applauded, but it held. Some nights, grief still came. I'd be washing dishes and suddenly remember Serena's laughter from early days, and it would hit like a bruise you forgot existed. I'd remember the way I used to reach for her hand in public and how she started pulling away. I'd remember the dinner table in caramel and the folder sliding toward me. The moment I realized my marriage had turned into a courtroom before any judge saw it. Trauma doesn't disappear because you got a fair settlement. It fades when you stop reopening the wound. The unknown number texted me once more after I moved. You didn't deserve that table. I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to ask who it was. I wanted to solve the mystery, to make the story neat. But I realized I didn't need the identity to understand the gift. Someone warned me when they didn't have to. Someone saw what Serena was doing and refused to let me be trapped. Sometimes that's the closest thing to grace you get, quiet help from a person who doesn't need credit. Months passed, and I heard updates through the soft network of people who couldn't resist gossip. Serena's credit was damaged. The bank investigation didn't become a headline, but it became a problem. Fees, restrictions, audits, a constant grind of consequences that made her life harder. Hollis's LLC faced reviews that cost time and money. Tavian bounced between couches, always blaming someone else. None of them apologized. None of them expressed remorse. They just grew more bitter, like consequences were an insult. That bitterness was its own punishment. They had to live inside themselves. My comeback didn't look like revenge. It looked like a quiet, successful life that no one could sabotage because I stopped giving them access. I started waking up early again, not from anxiety, but from routine. I cooked meals in my own kitchen without feeling watched. I walked through parks in Pittsburgh and felt my shoulders loosen. I reconnected with an old friend, not to vent endlessly, but to laugh. I took a weekend trip to Cleveland just to sit by the lake and remind myself the world was bigger than one woman's betrayal. One evening, I sat at my desk reviewing my budget, and I realized something strange. I wasn't scared anymore. For a long time, Serena had made me feel like stability depended on her mood, her approval, her family's judgment. Now, my stability depended on my choices. That was the personal transformation no one could photograph. I had learned to trust myself again. I had learned that kindness without boundaries is a liability. I had learned that love should never require you to surrender your reality so someone else can rewrite it. Sometimes people ask what happened between me and Serena. I keep it simple. I say we didn't work out. I don't tell them about the folder, the trap, the way she tried to turn my steadiness into evidence against me. I don't tell them how it felt to realize the person you sleep beside can plan your ruin with a calm face. I keep it private because privacy is part of my healing. My life isn't a lesson for strangers. It's a home for me, and I protect it like one. The last time I saw Serena was months after the divorce, by accident, at an airport in Chicago. She walked past me like I was a stranger. Her eyes didn't soften. Her posture stayed stiff, as if admitting pain would crack her image. Hollis and Meridell weren't with her. Tavian wasn't with her. She looked alone in a way she probably blamed on everyone else. I watched her disappear into a crowd and felt nothing like longing. I felt a quiet gratitude that I left that dinner when I did. Karma didn't need to announce itself. It just did its job, and I did mine by rebuilding in silence. If this story showed you anything, it's that kindness without boundaries is a liability. If you want more real, intense stories where karma hits quietly but hard, subscribe and turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done the moment that folder hit the table? The end.